Welcome back to the Talmid series as I'm talking to you today from the New York City, New York. And I want to continue the conversation that I had with you the day before, and that is the issue of discouragement. I'm just amazed how many people I come across as I travel, even at home when I'm back at home in the state of California at my local church. And when I speak to people just on a day-to-day basis, how many people are just completely discouraged? They have just about given up because they have all kinds of situations that they have to confront in life. And many times they just simply do not know what to do. Sometimes they just feel completely overwhelmed. Well, as I was reading in the Old Testament, and I'm reminded of Nehemiah, in the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament, in chapter 2, when Nehemiah received bad news, how he was going to respond. So I want to speak to you today about defeating discouragement. Defeating discouragement. Listen to these words from the Old Testament in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, verses 1 through 8. And it came about in the month of Nisan, and in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, that wine was before him. And I took up the wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. So the king said to me, "Why is your face sad, though you are not sick? Why are you sad even though you are not sick? This is nothing but sadness of heart." Then I was very much afraid. And Nehemiah noted this. In verse 3, I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should my face not be sad when the city and the place in the place of my father's tombs lies desolate, and its gates have been consumed by fire?" Then the king said to me, "What would you request?" So I prayed to the God of heaven. And I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor before you, send me to Judah, to the city of my father's tombs, that I may rebuild it." Then the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, "How long will your journey be, and when will you return?" So it pleased the king to send me, and I gave him a definite time. And I said to the king, "If it please the king, let letters be given for me for the governors of the provinces beyond the river, that they may allow me to pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the fortress, which is by the temple, and for the wall of the city, and for the house which I will go." And the king granted them to me, because the good hand of my God was on me. Do you realize that discouragement, a constant state of discouragement. I'm not talking about being disappointed from time to time, because all of us experience that. But I'm speaking to you about discouragement. I'm speaking about when disappointment now has turned into discouragement. Discouragement will rob you of peace. It will rob you of your peace, the peace that surpasses all human reasoning, questioning, and understanding. It will rob you of the peace of your family, of your friends, of your situation, of everything that's around you. It will rob you of joy in everything that you're involved with, and it's going to rob you of contentment. Contentment. Do you understand? You're just simply not content with what you have, in spite of the fact that it may be the greatest thing in your life. So it will rob you of peace, joy, and contentment. That's what discouragement will do to your life. But I've got some great news for you. If you feel disheartened, you don't have to be stuck there. You just do not have to be stuck there. Look, I've known people who appear to be in impossible situations. And I know on several occasions I found myself in what I thought was going to be an impossible situation. And a few years later, however, they were in a terrific place. either in terms of their circumstances or their emotions. Listen to me. Either one of those things is going to have to turn that corner. And you can be discouraged, you can be down and out for the moment. But the fact of the matter is that their situation, their circumstances changed and their emotions changed. What's the reason? They never gave up. That's the reason. They never gave up. Instead of sulking, woe is me, crying, being mumbling and grumbling all the time in self-pity, they chose to do something. They chose to believe God and step out in faith. That's what they chose to do. This is exactly what Nehemiah chose to do. He chose to believe God and step out in faith. And in that way, they did not remain entrenched in the emotional pit. This is exactly what most of us don't realize when you find yourself in a state of discouragement. You are in some deep, deep emotional pit. And Nehemiah is an excellent example. He had every reason to feel defeated. Absolutely every single reason. Why? Because his people were in trouble. And he could not do anything about it immediately. After receiving news that the city wall had been destroyed in Israel, in the city of David, this man of God acknowledged profound disappointment and grieved. That was real. Disappointment and grieving is real. He acknowledged it. Yet, doing so was risky because sadness in the presence of royalty was punishable by death. He couldn't contain himself. And the king noticed. And he asked him, "Why are you sad?" And Nehemiah prayed to God and responded to the king. Even though pain flooded Nehemiah's soul, even though your soul can be flooded with pain, Nehemiah did not allow himself to stay in that low place. You cannot allow yourself to stay there. Instead, he cried out to God for direction. That's what he did. He cried to God, "God, I need you. I need help. I have no clue what to do from this moment forward." And the Lord answered with amazing, amazing power. How? By prompting the king himself to notice his servant's sad countenance and then ask the servant what he could do to help. That was amazing, because no king would bow down to his servant. It was quite the other way. In fact, this miracle led to rebuilding the wall and the redemption of God's people. That's exactly what this miracle did. Let me ask you something. What do you think God can do for you? Here's what I understand. That the Lord can take any impossible situation, no matter what it is, and move in ways mightier than you can imagine. And that's the problem. I can't imagine what God can do. But I know that he can. And so I have to abandon myself and trust him. So I'm going to ask you this question. Do you live in eager expectation of what the Lord can and will do for you? Or have you chosen to linger in the depth of despair? Is that what you've chosen? You see, much of the circumstances in your life are out of your control. But how you respond and how you react, that's your choice. You can either find yourself, lingering in the depths of despair, or you can turn just like Nehemiah. Listen to me. You can turn just like Nehemiah. You can turn your disappointment into a petition for God's help. That's what you can do. You can take that disappointment, you can take that discouragement, and you can turn it into a petition for God's help. In fact, do you understand that God can help you? God can restore your hope. God can prevent negative emotions from gaining a stronghold in your life and completely consuming you. That's the question. Are you in the depths of despair, or will you turn your discouragement into a petition for God's help?